All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is May 30th. It is a Monday. It is Memorial Day. We are coming live and direct with Mondays with Mazur. I am the captain himself, Florida's greatest comedian. Joining me is Tony Mazur, formerly of terrestrial radio. And now radio, they like to take off around Memorial Day. They like to get their 4-day weekend in, right, Tony?
That's right. We don't take days off here. When we say Monday, remember last year we did that on July 4th? I was out in bumfuck Ohio, and I decided, you know what? Let's do a podcast. I'll have a couple of drinks, drink a couple of Coronas. We don't take days off here. This is our job. This is what we do. And if you work in regular radio, you have the day off today. Not us, motherfucker.
Well, I noticed if you go to check your brain on Patreon, you kind of dropped a big one. You dropped something you've been sitting on for a while, and I knew about. And one of the reasons why you decided to sit and keep quiet is because you were getting a nice severance check. Would you like to explain a little bit of it, or just give Cliff Note versions of the podcast you did?
Oh yeah, I'll explain it. There's an hour and 41 minutes worth on my Patreon right now at patreon.com/Tony Mazur, where I finally ranted about what happened with me at my previous company. I'm not going to mention them by name, but if you look it up, Tony Mazur Radio, you can get an opportunity to see what it's like. And where I worked and everything like that. But I'm personally not going to say anything about it. So I back in early April, I've been throwing a couple of Easter eggs out there on my podcast, on this podcast, and saying, radio, the places I used to work at, whatever. But I never actually said what happened to me. And April 7th, I had gotten let go from my previous employer, the radio station I was working for, because I had a problematic podcast with your good pal, Gino Bisconti, and that there were racial slurs being used, and that it was problematic, and I had lost the trust of the third floor, which is the programming floor at the place I was working at. Now, what was that problematic podcast? I had Gino on to promote Comedians of the Compound at the Funny Stop, which never actually happened, which is hilarious, but... it's not like when Chuck Booms, when you had him on and he was promoting a gig that legitimately was never going to happen. This was going to happen. It's just Aaron was basically going to have a stroke because of everything that was going on. So I had Gino on in mid-February. In fact, it was the day after my grandma died. So I had a couple of drinks and no excuses for any of that. And but it was just one of those cases where hey, I had Gino, and Gino get controversial, whatever. So I did 3 podcasts with him. One of them was for free, or actually the first 2 were for free, and they were going to go out in, every couple of weeks. So the first one is talking about COVID and talking about how we were all right in the last couple of years with the insanity. The second one was talking about Gino being engaged and his relationship problems and Alex Engelbert and stuff. Then the third podcast was Patreon only, where we can kind of just kind of do whatever we want and, rant about things. And Gino, as we talk about, is about Colin Kaepernick and the Rooney Rule and everything like that. Well, the problematic parts of it were that the use of the N-word was being used, that the term coon and the term monkey was being used in reference to Black people. And the whole thing with that was, the term monkey was used because Gino performs at a club in New York called Three Monkeys. The term coon was used to talk about how Black people who don't support Colin Kaepernick and Black Lives Matter are known as coons. Now, I'm not going to say the other C word. It's going to be used in that context. And now the use of the N word, let's be honest, Gino says the N word. And by proxy, because I did a racist podcast, that I'm by proxy a racist. So it got into the hands of people and the ears of people at my company, and they couldn't afford to keep me on board because I'm this racist.
So Gino got you fired?
Pretty much, yes.
Wow.
Which, and by the way, over the weekend, I talked to Gino about it, and he said, that's bullshit. You're better off, just like with Florence, or I shouldn't say names, but a couple of people have told me that, said, you're better off not working there. It's just, it would only be a problem as time goes on. And to be honest, if I wasn't fired for that, they would fire me for something else down the road.
No, we always said that. Like, I that's why I never really kind of pursued a radio job, because it's inevitable that I'm gonna get fired. It's just gonna happen. I know it. I don't like these fucking suits. I know they're fucking idiots.
Yeah.
I don't like being told what to do. I don't like, I don't, it's inevitable.
Well, here's the worst part about this whole thing. This is the troubling part that I think some people don't understand, while others will go, wow, is that just complete horseshit? So the first two podcasts I had with Gino were free podcasts. They're available on Patreon and Apple Podcasts, Google Play, iHeart, everything like that. I know if I'm going to put something on a public platform to not take things in that far of a direction. But if I do so and want to get into any kind of controversial topic, whether I'm talking about puberty blockers for trans kids and Black Lives Matter and kind of that kind of stuff, it's going to be behind a paywall, and you have to be a fan of mine to subscribe. If you want to hear exclusive Tony Mazur content because you're a fan of one Tony Mazur, you're going to subscribe on Patreon. So it's not out there in the public. How did this get out there? How did I get in trouble for this? Who was in charge? Who was out there ratting me out? Who was a spy? Because the only person who would have had to have heard it had to be one of my Patreon subscribers. Now, I have a bunch of people that I know personally, whether in real life or just over social media, and I've had interactions with. But there was one email address that was kind of interesting because they were a $10 tier. And I have $5, $10, and $20. I basically tell everybody just $5. I only put those if you really like my podcast that much and you want to support me in my mental health journey. You can subscribe for 10 or 20, but just go for 5. Well, this person subscribed for 10, which meant at the time when I started Patreon, it would be in the $10 where you get exclusive $10 tier content. I don't really do that as much anymore. And they subscribed the week I got this job as the program director, which was Martin Luther King Jr. week, which was third week of January that I announced I got.
Some weird irony how you got fired and when they signed up.
Yeah. So then that account stayed with me all throughout my severance, all throughout these last 7, almost 8 weeks that I haven't been working there. Severance is paid up. And it just so happened the day the severance got paid up, that person unsubscribed from my Patreon. Almost like they were monitoring me to see if I would say anything that would incriminate myself and take away my severance, because I didn't sign anything. I don't know. I've never had severance at any job.
Either have I.
I've never written anything down where they say, okay, well, here it is in writing that for the next 7 weeks, because you worked there for 7 years, you will get paid whatever.
Even when I got fired, like they didn't even pay me out the month of December. Like my contract was up. They knew if I would have went to court that it wasn't worth the time, and I would have used more money to fight to get my pay than they were actually going to pay me. So those scumbags just didn't pay me.
They do it. That's why they do it when you get to contract time in radio, that they would rather fire you 4 months left in your contract than get to a point of a haggling deal towards the end. That way they'll just pay the rest of it out. And as soon as that drops in your direct deposit, that's it. So they happen to unsubscribe over the weekend. So I'm going to give out that email address. If anybody is like a Joe Exotic type that can do some internet sleuthing, it's an account on Gmail called Russ Fulton 1983 at gmail.com.
How do you spell Russ Fulton?
RUSSFULTON 1983 at gmail.com. Russ Fulton 1983 at gmail.com. This was the problematic. This is the person who was apparently, I don't know what the association is with my former employer, if this person is a boss, if it's a jilted employee, or somebody who was a prospect that that could have been in the running for being hired for that job, and I ended up getting it and they got pissed off about it. Whatever the case is, this person is associated in some way with that company. And they were monitoring anything I was having that would be troubling, problematic. Because, and I'll give you another example, and I talked about this on the podcast. Back in October, maybe early November, I had a podcast that I talked about, and I only mentioned briefly because I had a then coworker who had just gotten let go over some allegations of sexual harassment at the workplace. I wasn't necessarily talking about that person in particular. The whole podcast was about if you're a guy at the workplace and you notice one of your female coworkers has nice cleavage, has got a haircut, lost some weight, don't say anything. Don't compliment. Don't hug. don't say anything that could be misconstrued. It's not worth it in this Me Too society. The whole podcast was just talking about sexual harassment at the workplace and how to best avoid it. And what the best way to do is don't say anything. So I posted that in either late October, early November. It was brought to my attention that I had that podcast in February. Now, this was after that person had already subscribed. So that person, that Russ Fulton 1983 at gmail.com, was going through my archives trying to find something to attack me over, to find. And you're talking about several months have passed since that went on. And so I got a Zoom meeting about it with one of my bosses saying, probably we just got to watch ourselves when we're on, you're doing a podcast. I know you do that every so often and stuff, but we don't want to get any legal battles with any former employers or former employees and everything like that. We just want to, I'm like, all right. And I didn't think the podcast was that great anyways. I thought I had a good idea for it. So I just deleted it. I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not censorship, but I didn't like it in the first place anyways. I didn't have much of a direction other than what I've been saying. So I deleted it. It was no problem. But this was strike 2. And I don't know why I didn't start looking at that time. This is my naivete. This is where I can blame myself for that. I should have figured who this person was and getting me, because I was starting to get kind of nervous about people who I thought were my friends. Like, I'm not saying he was doing it, but like Ken Mosca. Let's say, for example, Ken Mosca subscribes to my Patreon and he comes across as he's my good friend and we talk on the phone. But in reality, he's sending clips to my bosses going like, you know what your employee is talking about? He said tranny and faggot on a podcast. Can you believe that? Like one of those cases. And I started going like, I don't want to get paranoid, but is this really happening? And sure enough, it did happen. It was just not with any of my friends. It was somebody who I didn't know who started a dummy email address that was involved with my former company who fucked me over. And that's what happened.
When I mysteriously kept getting written up in the months of September and October, and my contract was up in December, I smelled it in the water. I go, oh, they're trying to get rid of me. I see what's going on. I remember one time I walked in, true story, because I shared an office with Alan Cox. I came in and it was like 11:30 and I sit down. I go, hey, what's up? He's like, hey. He gets up, leaves the office, comes back like 6 minutes later. I thought maybe he went to the restroom or something. Sits down, gets in front of his computer. Bo Matthews comes down 2 minutes later, says, hey, can I have a word with you? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And we walk down to his office. And the HR is sitting right there. I go, what's up? Yeah, man, you came in at 11:30 today. I was like, so? I mean, I'm supposed to be here by 3.
Yeah.
Like there was no set time to come in. He's like, yeah, man. He's like, you've been slipping lately. You've been, I've
heard that one before. Yep.
I go, what do you mean? I mean, slipping. He's like, yeah, you're not putting the work in. And I go, did Alan just come down here and tattletale that I just came in at 11:30? Because I'm not supposed to come in. Like, I'm supposed to be there by 3. I could do all this shit from home. And then he wrote me up. And I go, that motherfucker. And
for a show, again, that you're 3.5 hours early for. And which doesn't, I mean, especially nowadays, you can get there. If the show starts at 3, you can get there at 2:59 and be early because they don't put any effort into that show anyways.
Yeah. I mean, that's what the Maxwell show pretty much did before me. So I walked in the office. I go, thanks a lot, buddy. And he goes, what are you talking about, Alan? I go, you know what I'm talking about. We didn't say a word to each other until the radio. And after that, like as soon as the radio went off, I left. We had no communication anymore after that because I knew what he was up to.
I hate these people, and I call them out all in this podcast. If anyone wants to listen, I'll put it out for free eventually, but I'm calling people out, but not by name because they know who they are, but I can do it a little bit where you mentioned, Daryl Wallace and everybody like that. I think I did mention Keith Abrams and Bo Matthews and all those kind of people. These as I call them, gossipy bitches. That's what you are in this business.
No talent.
If you're listening and watching this right now, you know who the fuck you are. Fuck you. And for people, by the way, here's the other thing is, and you knew this at the time, where as soon as that happened, as soon as you got that pink slip, all of a sudden the text messages started going away, and people stopped commenting and liking and retweeting and favoriting things that you had on your posts, and things started really. And I noticed that even people who I considered friends in the business just kind of went radio, no pun intended, radio silent on me.
Oh yeah, no, I was like boys with Miles, the guy who did the imaging for him and I were tight, man. We used to work together, come up with crazy shit. and they just disappear. They don't return
Yeah.
the text. You're gone.
And by the way, Miles's mother was one of my coworkers. She also went unfriended, unfollowed, everything like that. So
I guess it
fuck her
runs in the
too.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah, fuck her too.
Turncoats. It's what this is. This whole business. And I mean, what it is. I mean, every one of these people have my phone number. They have access. I've never. That was the other thing. And you and I actually, you were the first person. Actually, you were the second person I told the day this happened. The first person was a guy who worked at another industry. I'm like, hey, you guys still hiring over there? And you were the second person.
You and you didn't tell me right away. Like you brought something up. Oh,
Red Hot Chili Peppers were on Howard that week.
On Howard,
and I'm like, hey, did you get a chance to see the interview and hear the music? And we were talking about that for like a half hour. I'm like, well, I got bury the lead long enough right now.
Yeah. Then you're like, I just got fired. I'm like, what? It's like you just got hired.
I told you and Ken Mosca before I told my wife and my family. And not many people knew about this. And the radio trades picked it up a couple of weeks later because they heard something, or I think they were trying to email me and it kept bouncing back. And so they're like, uh-oh, what happened? So it was so funny when this is again how media works, is that when I got the job back in January, I had a couple of trades say like, congratulations to Tony Mazur for being program director.
And how long did you work there
station.
for?
I was there 7 years and I had that job for 3 months.
Wow.
But when I ended up getting fired, I got a couple of people in the media, one of them from Cleveland.com, reaching out and saying, hey, I heard this. Can you mind talking about it? I'm like, I ain't talking to you.
Gossipy bitches.
You know why? Because this was a new station and you knew who I was in January. You've known who this particular reporter has known who I was since 2010. And you saw, and I posted all over the place. I'm program director. I got this new job. And none of you reached out and said, hey, congratulations. We'd like to do a story on you in this new station. But you want to do a story on me getting let go from it. So fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you and fuck all of you.
Like Cleveland Scene magazine. They just want to do hit pieces for their page clicks. They don't give a fuck. I'm a Cleveland guy and you guys fucking stepped on my face and you're holding these people from Chicago and Las Vegas up. Like, fuck you. I was one of you.
Yeah. I
mean, I'm with you, dude.
Sad.
I get it.
It's sad. And I remembered because I was alerted to it the day before. And I actually was on the phone with you and I'm like, I don't know what this means. I could wake up tomorrow and go to the station and everything's fine. This could be one of those final warnings. And I'll just be like, because I said that in an email, by the way, never apologize for this problematic podcast with racial slur, all in context, by the way, just like what they did with Joe Rogan. There's a compilation of Joe Rogan for years saying the N-word. Yeah, every single one of those was in the context of him quoting something like a rap lyric or quoting Michael Richards or whatever the case is. And so it was all completely taken out of context. And
I love it with Gino, though. Like, did Gino feel bad at least?
He did, yeah. Yeah, I was talking to him on Saturday or maybe Sunday, whatever it was. It was Saturday. And he was like, oh, man, that sucks. He's like, but he did say that like him and a bunch of other people who said I'm better off not. Every single person says I'm better off not there. So, but I remember when I got that email about how problematic it was.
Aaron Berg's better off not being on Compound Media. Just letting him know.
That's true. Oh yeah, we'll have to get into that here. Speaking of people canceled and everything like that. But I knew it was going to happen, and it was April 6th. I got the email about it, and I sent back and I said, "Here's what happened in the podcast. There was no podcast called Race Wars. Now that's a podcast with Sherrod Small. This podcast had to do with this, and we talked about Colin Kaepernick. We talked about the Rooney Rule and everything like that. Anything that was said was in the context of what we were talking about. It's not me going and saying like, oh, those goddamn N-words are just, it was never that. It never was. And you can go through my entire archive. I would never say anything like that publicly. But the whole thing. So then by the 7th, I get a text message about 9:00 in the morning. I was just about to leave. Remember, I had just gotten my appendix taken out that week. And then I had kidney stones. I had to leave that podcast early that week because I'm like, I am not feeling well. I got to go back to the hospital. And I had a bout of really bad kidney stones. So I'm kind of like all over the place. And so I'm at Walgreens going to pick up some cranberry juice and Flomax just to see if I can pass this stone. And they said, hey, can you come into the office, before you get settled up? And so I walked in on April 7th at about 9:30. And I heard 2 people in the office and I'm like, uh-oh, that's not a good sign. And one of those is the owner of the company. I'm getting let go, aren't I? And I walked in, I heard they said, you've lost the trust of the third floor and we have no choice, but we have to part company right now.
Mm.
And I'm like, if it means anything, I'm going to explain myself in context, this and this. And they said, well, a paywall, New York Times has a paywall. And I'm like, yeah, that's different. It's a different type of paywall between Patreon, a Patreon podcast from a comic and radio guy, and the New York fucking Times. It's a much different story. But they said, because here's their mindset is I pissed off a couple of people because of that. They were told that, your program director at that station did a racist podcast and had the N-word was used and coon and monkey. And they're like, oh, we don't want it. So it would be one of those where they would go up to management and say, hey, it's either him or me. It's either him or us. And so the company looked, let's see, we can get rid of Tony and keep everybody else, or we keep Tony and everybody else leaves. So for them, it's like, we have no choice. We got to let Tony go. And that's what ended up happening.
By the way, nothing happened. Like how long you been unemployed from there?
Almost 2 months.
Nothing happened. Nothing happened.
No.
It was a knee-jerk reaction. They made a bad decision. It wasn't talked about. It wasn't a big deal. There was no noise. Nobody was like, where's Tone? It was like you guys basically fucked somebody over, took away their career, their job,
their
for
passion.
no reason.
My passion. I mean, that's what I talked about how in these businesses of TV, newspapers, even stand-up comedy is that it's not so much the act of doing whatever it is you're doing, a radio show, you're writing a column, you're on stage. It's all the bullshit that surrounds it is the problem. And radio is not a business. We talked about this almost every week now. It's not a business for people who are creative. It's a business for people that want to collect a paycheck and have to kiss ass until that paycheck clears every 2 weeks. That's what it is. It's not a business for me. And also, I don't want to attach myself to anything that was mediocre. And that station sounds very mediocre right now. And it could have been so much better. They asked me when they were launching the rebrand of the alternative station back in November and December, they said, we need to clean something up here. What can we do? What can we do to make this sound better? And I told them, I said, you need to play older songs. No one gives a fuck about new Coldplay, new Weezer, new Foo Fighters, new Imagine Dragons, rinse and repeat. So you need Nirvana, you need Pearl Jam, you need the Butthole Surfers, you need Mazzy Star, you need all the bands that Gladwell Ape hates that I like. And you need all that because it's going to broaden your audience. You can't expect that you're going after millennials and Gen Z because they don't know what radio is. They don't care about radio. They've never listened to radio. They've gone elsewhere for their old radio habits. They've gone to Spotify and everything. So I said, you need to, if you're going to try to bring people on board, you need to broaden it out to being an older alternative where you're leaning heavy on some of the 90s and early 2000s alternative tracks. And if anything, it can't be just alternative. It has to be more like a modern rock type of I don't want to say hard rock, but something where it's a little bit more rock and like Stone Temple Pilots than you are with these gay synthesizer Vampire Weekend type of horse shit. And they basically hired me at that station just to push buttons. And I mean, literally push buttons, not like push their buttons. I'm talking about being a board op. And if I didn't say anything, I collect a decent paycheck every 2 weeks and that's it. But I'm not one of those guys. I'm somebody that I have integrity. I have, I have values and I have principles. And a lot of this violated that. And I'm not somebody who wants to attach myself to anything mediocre. I want to attach myself to something good.
Yeah, same with my old show. Like I wanted it to be good. I wanted to be proud of it. That's why I put so much work into it. And then when you remove me from that and you see his shit show now, and I will happily, it's not good. It's not a good show.
No,
because I know what I brought. I know the element. I'm not saying I was the most, the greatest radio personality, but I was proud that I knew I made it good. We did bits. We had great guests. We had great, it was just, I didn't agree with every fucking thing he said. Like there was a little tension. It was good radio. And you take that element gone, you got mediocre vanilla horse shit like he has right now. And you can deny it all you want, but there's a reason why you don't play replays with me in it, because it was a better show, period. Now you got these two suck ass comedians sucking your dick, say, yeah, we agree. Just don't fire me. And that's what it is. You want shit, you get shit.
my mantra for radio was it was an old, actually coincidentally, an old WMMS phrase. It was, we don't go to work, we go to war. And at one time it was, you had radio wars. Why do you think in all of these, O&A and Howard and everything, they would have the funerals, and because radio wars were kind of fun, but it was also very competitive because you would look at the book and like, wow, we're up here in the 25-54, the 18 to 34 demographic. We're number one in our time slot.
I got written up over a radio war. Because Maxwell went to WNCX and I was fucking with them all the time. And Bo wrote me up. I go, what the fuck's going on, man? I was like, you're writing me up because I'm talking shit? Like, really? This is what it is.
Yeah. And all of you people who think that any radio personality is kind of like going against the grain and doing their own thing and being controversial. But Shane Rover French is a kiss ass. Alan Cox is a kiss ass. Greg Opie Hughes for a long time, as much as he seemed like he was a fuck management type of guy, kiss ass. They all did that. It's the only way to keep a job in this business is to just kiss the boss's ass. And it sucks because it hurts the product. So your whole thing is job preservation as opposed to making a good radio show and making a good product. And I'm sorry, but that's not the industry that I wanted to get into. Yes, I was happy I got the program director job, but I would have been happier if it were 10 years ago when radio still meant a little bit of something as opposed to what it is now, where essentially they gave me that job just so I can kind of like just, be a board up. Oh, and here's the other thing. You remember radio consultants, right? Remember those? They would come in and consult. They would say like, hey, you guys are doing this pretty good. Here are a couple of ways you can do things better. Instead, at this station, the consultant was essentially the program director. He was running things, which he's essentially is doing now too. He's this consultant. I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but, and he's probably listening. Who knows? Who cares? And he was running the station. He was the one who was telling people, hey, he was telling us like, here, you need to play this. You need to stop playing this.
That's the thing. Nobody knows who these people are. So they're like anonymous in their little world. There's somebody, but to everyone else, you're nothing. More people know who I am than anybody at your radio station.
Oh,
period.
Yeah. So when I came on board and I said, actually about 2 weeks before I got let go, I had a Zoom meeting with the consultant and one of my bosses, because consultant was in Texas, the boss was in Florida, and here I am in Akron, Ohio. And it was this meeting about like, it sounds like a college radio station. We need to start tightening things up and everything. And I'm like, well, first of all, I didn't hire this staff. You guys hired them all before I got there. Or you forced them on me. My only hire I made was our evening personality, and everybody loves her. They think she's got a star in the making. Why? Because I kind of know a thing or two about radio. And then the other thing was I mentioned it in this meeting. I said, I'm sorry, but we play way too much new music. We have twice as many Imagine Dragons songs that we play in rotation than we do Pearl Jam.
First of all, I hate Imagine Dragons. I hate Imagine Dragons.
I can't stand. You know what Imagine Dragons is? Dentist office music. It's where you're getting your teeth, you're getting a cavity filled, and you hear "It's time to begin," right? And it's just like it's something to put on in the background.
By the way, just to give you an idea of Imagine Dragons, it's LeBron James' favorite rock band. They asked him who his favorite. He said Imagine Dragons. I go, they officially suck now.
That tells you everything you need to know. So I mentioned it. I said, we're playing too much new music. And to be honest, that's why the last alternative format failed, because you're playing this because nobody gives a fuck about. It's like if people want to hear Weezer, they want to hear Say It Ain't So. They want to hear Buddy Holly. They don't want to hear the new Africa version or all my favorite songs don't make me sad. Ugh.
Yeah.
No one wants your new Foo Fighters. They want to hear old Foo Fighters.
Let's switch gears. You're going back to, you were saying this already.
Well, I know, but the last thing I'll say, and I'll wrap it up when I say this, is that if I wasn't going to get fired for what I did on that podcast with Gino, I would have gotten fired for something that I was going against the grain here. And they basically, what they told me is they say, so you're going to tell me that you know more about radio and about programming and the music than all the program directors and all the consultants across the country. And I'm like, yeah, I do, because you're the reason people aren't listening to radio, not me. I just started this job. You're the reason everyone went to Spotify. So, oh, well, too bad. So sad. But my severance is done and I've got a new job and everything is wonderful. I tell you.
Yeah. And it sounds like people are like, oh, you guys are just bitter. No, we're just real. We have integrity. We're not kiss asses, and we want to do our own thing. That's why we do this every Monday, so we don't have to have a fucking boss. So definitely sign up for our respected Patreons. And since we're on the Gino kick, did you see that we were both on the Anthony Cumia show?
I did see this
last week. And
the captain's hats.
Yeah, you could see Anthony making fun of my captain's hat. And I'm like, this is when it jumps the shark here, because I know he's trying to be funny and he sees, Kevin shitting on me and, I shit on Chrissy, and he's very overly protective about Chrissy. But this is where he jumps the shark and this doesn't stick. We are making fun of Opie by wearing these captain's hats.
Yeah.
So
because we're steering the ship right now.
We're steering the ship, making fun of Opie. So when you make fun of me, you look foolish and misinformed. And I'm not mad at Anthony. He's misinformed because he's got two frauds working him. Chrissy Mayer, who from out of nowhere is this right-wing conservative talk, and registered Democrat Kevin Brennan working him. And I pretty much have all the same views Anthony has. I should be an ally, but yet he is being worked by these people. And he's, and I knew when I put that video up with Godfrey, I talked about it. I knew he would talk about it. That's why I did it. And everyone's saying, oh yeah, it was out of context. No, it's pretty much in context. Godfrey says he's been wanting to beat up Gino for years now. I've defended Gino to Godfrey. I go, he's not a racist. He's like, yeah, I heard this, that, whatever. So they all think that I did that on purpose and I'm using Godfrey for muscle. Go fuck yourself. Godfrey's his own dude. I can't control him. He's going to say what he wants to say. And I knew that would be an issue.
Yeah, it was. And mention it on 2 days in a row. Not only just on Tuesday when you called in, but mention it on the next show with Gavin.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I was mentioning. I'm like, wow, I love Gavin. There I am next to Gavin on the screen there. That was kind of interesting. But
did Gavin know who I was?
No.
Oh, good.
I don't think Gavin knew. And but I think, well, because their whole thing, and I'll be honest, Anthony made a good point, because I also hate comedians for the most part too.
Me too. I'm with him on that. I can't stand him.
He as he called them all faggots, and I that's the one thing, is that comics don't speak truth to power anymore. There was this whole thing like watching the George Carlin documentary or talking about guys like Kinnison and Bill Hicks. And it's just like, comedians right now are just court jesters. They just go up there and they tell dick jokes and they get off the stage. It's unfortunate that that's the business now, but it's the only way you're not going to have people come up on stage and try to punch you. But the whole Godfrey thing, I mean, I don't agree with Godfrey wanting to assault. I mean, and Anthony also brought up a good point. He's like, see, what you're doing is you're actually bringing up the point that we're talking about, is that Black people seem to be pretty quick to anger and violence. And all I'm saying is I bring up statistics on, racial disparities and, disproportionate amount of Black crime that happens. And yet you want to punch me. It's like, you're proving my point right now. So I disagreed with, as much as I was kind of laughing at with being on there with Godfrey, I didn't agree with him there. I don't think Gino's a racist. I mean, there's talk about Anthony and everything, but I certainly don't think Gino is a racist at all.
Well, I mean, if you want to go play with fire, and that's what it is, I don't. It's not my position to agree or disagree, but whatever Godfrey thinks, that's Godfrey's thoughts. It's not like I'm pushing him in that direction. I mean, I argue with Godfrey all the time. That's why we're such good friends, is we can have these healthy debates and we talk about race. And I say, listen, I don't care. I judge a person for a person. If he's an asshole, he's an asshole. If he happens to be Asian, oh, well, I'm sorry.
I mean, that's what it is that, and by the way, Anthony and them, they didn't really blame you for the clip, because they know that it's kind of like an Opie thing where you feel that, hey, if this gets out into the right eyes, that you can play it. And that's what you did. It's good content moderation, and it's good for,
and by the way,
it's good for your brand.
I didn't tag him in it. I knew it would find its way to him. I just know how I just knew it was going to find its way, and that's why I did what I did. And I it wasn't out of context, because I guess Chrissy's boyfriend says it was completely out of context and it was a setup. I'm like, shut up.
And you talked about that when you called into Anthony. You said the context was, you were talking about that you wore a LeBron jersey to a Sixers game with Allie, and somebody called you an N-word lover, and Godfrey asked if Allie was still working there, and then he said everybody at that station needs to get their asses kicked.
And here's the thing. Godfrey has seen the video of Cumia calling that Red Bar fan the N-word over and over. And he goes like, that's racist. He goes, fuck this dude. So there's video out there of Anthony saying this. So it's not like I'm just saying, man, this is what he thinks. So yeah. I don't know. I can't justify it. I've defended Gino to Godfrey because Godfrey, he's been saying this for a long time about Gino. And I was like, he's not, I go, I lived with the guy for like 7 months. He's like, you fucking live with that dude? I go, yeah, dude, he's just Gino. He's an idiot, you know, like so I don't know. He's going to have to deal with that on his own. I don't have nothing to do with it.
Yeah, but I liked your line when you called in Anthony. You said, I'm applying to be a producer because I gave you 40 minutes of content.
I know. Yeah, way to waste all that money on E-Rock, dummy.
Speaking of content, what is this Ray DeVito feed now, or a feud? I mean, like, give me the Cliff Notes because I know that you put out a show and then he reposted it too. Well, you know, because Ray, let's be honest, all comics are pretty narcissists.
Here's the thing. I don't hate Ray. He's an idiot. I think he's regressed as a comic. He's another guy who's watching what I'm doing closely and he tries to mimic it, or he gets in these weird competition settings and it's just, I don't like it. And now he's in with the Kevin Brennan, you know, the loud trolls on Twitter. So he's all in with the Kevin Brennan fans. And so he's doing this whole thing, using it like Kevin does. He's trying to use me as content. And I see what he's doing and I'm calling him out on it. And he's having like Stevie Lou on. And where it all started was right around December 27th, my birthday, because I had a big fallout with Kevin. Kevin sent me and Ken Mosca all these terrible text messages on Christmas, like making fun of Ken's kid, just all kinds of shitty stuff. You know, I have them all. And it just really shows the mental illness of Kevin Brennan doing this. So I quoted, and everyone knows, I said, hey, when your daughter turns 18, I'm going to fuck her. Like the great Dave Lando said on Opie and Jim, just because I knew
that was the context of it.
Yeah. And so Kevin went on to pretend like he was a victim. Like I went after his family. And apparently Jeff Levine from Silk City Hot Sauce, who I was the original fucking podcast he sponsored. And then he found out about Chrissy, Ray, and everybody else. He thought it went too far because he has 2 kids of his own. And he dropped me from the hot sauce, you know, publicly while people were piling on, and because Kevin made himself the victim. So I said, fuck this. So I reached out to Ray and said, if you want to do my podcast, he's like, dude, I can't, man. There's too much heat on you right now, man. He goes, I got all my Patreons from Kevin, man. I can't do that, man. I go, fuck you, Ray, you cunt. Can't do my podcast. There's too much heat on me. Meanwhile, Ray has like 35 pages. He makes like $170. Like who? No one's listening to you, Ray. Nobody. You don't have an audience. Stop it. So I called him out on that, and he's just been being a cunt lately. So I'm calling him out, and he's pretending like he's the victim now. And he was in the Bahamas last week featuring, and I sent him a text, and I guess he didn't have his phone off. He had his phone off the whole time, for whatever
roaming
reason.
Charges,
I guess. But he just assumed I should know that, and he didn't respond to a text. I don't know. Long story short, he's now trying to use it as content, and I don't care. I'm fine without Ray in my life. I'm good.
You know, I've known you for, I think, probably since about 2010, and we've been friends probably about 8 years now. And
I've known Chelsea for 8 years. She's known me for 2. Go ahead.
There's a loyalty thing that, like, I've talked about it before, but if I've reached out to Chrissy Mayer about a year ago to be on my podcast, and she responded saying, like, what time is like usually a good time? And I said, well, you know, I work mornings, but I can do any time after that. I didn't hear back, and I'm sure she won't go on my podcast because of the association with you.
And by the way, that's the only podcast she hasn't done is yours. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, exactly. I'm not as big as her, and we're not clout chasing or whatever what's it called? Social climbing.
Social climbing was her exact quote.
Yeah, and the way I see it is, okay, then because of my association with Chad, here's the difference. And this is where, you know, I agree with Cumia about comics, is the difference is a lot of comics will go like kind of what Ray did by going, let's see. Kevin's going has loyal supporters, and I've gotten some Patreon supporters because of him. Or there's Chad, who I've known for 20 years. Yeah, well, you know what? I've gotten more from Kevin, so I'm going to lean towards Team Kevin. For me, it's like, if like there could be a possibility if I said I renounce Chad Zumock right now, and Chrissy could have me on the Wet Spot or her podcast, and I could promote it. But I'm like, you know what? It doesn't matter to me because I have loyalty. That's the problem. And kind of getting back to the radio thing is that people don't have integrity
No.
in any form of this, whether it's stand up, whether it's podcasting, radio, TV, newspaper, blogging, anything like that. Nobody has integrity anymore. And nobody has a sense of loyalty to people who have either helped them through the years or just have been friends with them.
And here's the thing, Ray would never, I got him on Kevin's show. Kevin didn't know who he was. I'm the one who set that up because Ray was doing a show at Caroline. So I was the guy who put him in contact with Kevin, booked him on the show when I was living in LA. So that, again, where's the loyalty, dude? So I'm good. I'm good. I'm the only one not pandering.
It's one of those cases where you helped me get on Misery Loves Company, and I did get Patreon supporters from that, but because you're not on there, it's like I'm not going to simp for Team Kevin as much as I mean I've always liked Kevin Brennan, and I've liked what he's done for a long time and everything, but again, I'm more loyal to you, and if that means that I'm never going to be on MLC anymore, oh well, that's my loyalty. That's where my loyalty lies. I'm on Team Chad. Florida's greatest comedian.
And here's the thing, like I'm not a cunt like Kevin, like, oh, if you go on his podcast, you're done with me. I don't care. Go on his podcast. I don't give a shit. Do whatever you want. You're a grown ass person. If you like Kevin, that's fine. He fucked me over. It is what it is. And I remember somebody telling me, like, when I started doing a show, they're like, you realize it's just a countdown, much like radio. It's a countdown until Kevin cut your head off and he's done with you. He uses you, and that's what it was. And I should have known better. I was in a weird spot at the time, and I thought we did some good shows together through Zoom the best we could, and I thought I brought a lot to the table. But I guess he thought of me as the next Lenny and Brian, and that's fine, and I don't give a fuck, and it is what it is. But did you hear about this, to switch gears? Guess who I talked to on the phone for a very, very long time?
Let me see. Is it Trader Joe's Jeff Blanchard?
No, but I'm glad you got that one in there. I talked on my Patreon about it. I haven't been vocal about it on social media, but I tell the story on my Patreon. But I get a DM from Whitney Cummings, who I haven't spoken to in probably 15 years. And she was real concerned about me and what happened to our friendship and all this other stuff.
Wow.
Yeah. And where did things go wrong? How did it go sideways? Can we talk? Can we go get coffee? Whatever the case is. And I was like, what the fuck? So I screenshot it and I sent it to a few people. Like, what should I make of this?
Because I mean, this is a couple of months after the Amy Schumer thing.
Yes. So I don't know what these superstar comedians, these female comics, why they need to have a conversation. But I sent it to Chris D'Elia, and D'Elia was just like, that's crazy. It's weird. And he essentially said, listen, he goes, she's not in my life anymore. She's maybe dealing with some mental thing. I don't know. And then he wrote back again, texted me. He goes, if I were you, I wouldn't respond. And I go, yeah, you know what? I shouldn't respond. So then I started thinking some more. I go, you know what? No, I'm going to tell her. I said, I think what she did to D'Elia was fucked up. And I think it was, again, loyalty. Where's the loyalty there?
Yeah.
Threw him under the bus and nothing happened. And thank God Chris got his career back or whatever. And I explained that to her. I was like, oh, that was fucked up, dude. I was like, I don't hate you, Whitney. I was like, I haven't spoken to you in almost since 2007. So, and she
you guys used to do open mics together.
Yeah. And she even said that in the conversation. And she even wrote back, you know what? She goes, you have every right in the world to feel the way you're feeling. She goes, I got sick doing what I did to Chris. I feel bad about the whole thing, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, long story short, she gave me her phone number and I already had it anyway, but she said, let's talk. And we did. We talked on the phone and it was weird. It was very strange.
That's amazing. I mean, maybe it is somebody who's making amends and somebody that, because, we talked about this, about comics who are on the downhill. And I'm not saying that she's necessarily on a down slope, because I mean, she has a lot of fuck you money. I mean,
Yeah,
she had
she's
2
worth $30
shows
million.
on, lots of money, but it's not Whitney Cummings Day anymore. It's Nikki Glaser Day. That's what it is. If you want to talk about top female comics, it's probably Nikki right now. So Whitney might be on the way. I mean,
No, I think we all know it's Chrissy Mayer.
of course. Well, I should qualify my statements here. But it's one of those cases of somebody that might be kind of looking around at the friends are kind of drying up, and it's where you start to see Dane Cook performs at comedy clubs instead of arenas anymore. That may not necessarily be something they did. It's not Dane, as Patrice O'Neill said before he died. It's just not Dane Cook Day anymore.
Yeah.
It's not Amy Schumer Day anymore.
By the way, that's what did it with Bert and I, is when he filmed his Netflix special in Cleveland, and I sent him that nasty text. I go, have fun, Bert. I'll see you on the way down. And I think that's what bothered him.
And it's going to happen at some point. Bert's going to be one of those. He's going to be back in comedy clubs as opposed to doing theaters, arenas, or whatever he's doing right now. And it's that's why you don't. I mean, I've burnt enough bridges. I did an hour and 41 minutes of burning a bridge today on my Patreon. But you also have to look out for people that are, that at some point when they are on their way down, that they're going to want to look out for somebody.
By the way, when did that person delete their Patreon, The Spy?
2 days ago.
Okay, they still could listen to it to the end of the month. So,
the end of the month is what, one more day.
So they're probably still going to listen to it.
Yeah, that's true.
Should I put this one out for free just so everyone can listen?
You're welcome to.
Yeah.
Yeah, go
this
for
is
it.
What we do every Monday.
Russ Fulton 1983 at gmail.com if anybody wants to try to find the location, or I know there's VPNs and incognito mode and everything, but if anybody wants to do some sleuthing, I'm all for that.
Oh, I have a double agent on my Patreon too. They send my audio to Kevin and other people. I don't know who it is, but
is that the Misery Loves Clips person?
It might be.
Or Clipperson.
I don't even know who they are anymore. No, so yeah, there's a couple cunts, we'll just call them, if that's cool. Looks like my ad, I think I just demonetized by saying cunt. Oh well. Looks like I'm not going to get a job on radio.
Just don't say the N-word. Just don't say the N-word.
Anyways, Tony Mazur and I do this every Monday. Go sign up to his Patreon, my Patreon. Like we say in the business, we're up against it. Tony,
I'm going to go see Sam Tripoli this week.
Where's he at?
He's at Hilarities in Cleveland.
Oh shit! Tell him I said hi.
I will do so. I'm interested in his. So you are on good terms.
Yeah, we're good. We've been messaging each other. So,
because last time I saw him was the day the world shut down, which was March 11th of 2020. I saw him outside the Comedy Store. He was leaving, and this is right when I think that's when he was having his kids. What was it, Ghost and Viper, or whatever the name is, or Zombie?
Yeah, I think his kids' names are like Top Gun call signs.
Last thing, Top Gun 2, recommend, right?
What? You haven't seen it yet?
Nope, I haven't. No, I have not yet.
I will though. Twice. It's unbelievable. It is so good, so good.
You don't like that it's pro-military and pro-America?
It's nostalgia. It's got its own twist. They honor the past. It's thoughtful. I mean, it's just.
Is it woke at all?
There's a lot of diversity in the Top Gun school now. I noticed.
Did you see the new cast of Night Court? I
didn't even know there's a Night Court. They rebooting it?
There's a reboot of Night Court that's coming out after 30 years, and the new cast. I mean, it's John Larroquette, and then it's like another fat black woman that's not Marsha Warfield.
It's
like a black guy and a Muslim guy and probably a trans person too.
Isn't Harry, what's his name? Harry Anderson. Isn't he dead?
Harry Anderson's dead. Marky Post is dead. Richard Mull is still alive, but who looked like Brody Stevens.
Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, that's right. I look like Bull from Night Court.
Yeah, the new Night Court. It's just woke court. Yeah, look at this. Come on. And look at poor John Larroquette right there. I mean, the guy's like 80. He's got to deal with this shit.
This is them. Oh my goodness. Was this guy like a guy who looks like Andrew Schultz's co-host? That guy? What's his name?
Yeah. I know who you're talking about.
Oh, and the judge is a female, of course.
Of course she is. Yeah, because we don't need Harry Anderson or somebody like him doing magic tricks behind.
Oh, wait, you know what? That's a false. We're up against it because I got to find out. I mean, we're all over the place today. So what was it like talking to Tom Berenger? I
Oh
noticed.
yes, I forgot. Okay, I'll make it quick because I'm gonna do a podcast on it this week. But Tom Berenger hates the Cleveland Guardians.
Nice.
He was telling us that he was just tired of all this woke stuff, and he was like, and he's like, I think he's starting to get to Joe Biden range of like a little bit of dementia, like the first little bits of it. I could be wrong, and I'm just saying allegedly. I don't know, have not a doctor or anything, but
By the way, just a preference. Tom Berenger was in the movie Major League, which is
yes,
about the Cleveland Indians. And it was right around the Cleveland Indians started getting good when the movie came out. That's when Joey Bell and Kenny Lofton came and they went to the World Series. So that movie was kind of like Cleveland's World Series forever. Like,
it was.
Yeah. So,
and we were talking to him, and he was talking about Aldous Huxley, Brave New World in 1984. Like, he's a history buff. I mean, for God's sakes, he's Sergeant Barnes in Platoon.
yeah.
And he was, but he was so tired, and he was so thankful that there were people that were not woke, as he said. And we were like, the Guardians and everything. It's like, oh God, do I hate the Guardians? Because he has little helmets that he was autographing that have those ice cream helmets.
Yeah.
That they had Chief Wahoo on it. And I'm like, so I told him, so what are they going to do next? Are they going to go into Major League and superimpose the Chief Wahoos out of the movie pretty soon and digitally put in Guardians on their uniforms? Is that where we're heading? Is oh God, oh these motherfuckers. He was pissed off about it, and it was nice to hear. And then they were asking him about what's next. Like, guy won an Emmy for Hatfields and McCoys, and he was a pretty popular actor. And whoever was doing the Q&A was like, so what's next? And he went on this rant about his agent, how he's not getting any work. And we're just like, my wife and I are looking like, I think we're watching a meltdown right now.
That's hilarious.
But how he's like, yeah, I won an Emmy. I was nominated for a Golden Globe for Sergeant Barnes. I'm doing all this. Why am I not getting work nowadays? And I'm like, well, you're also like 73 years old, and who knows? But it was cool meeting Tom Berenger, met Eric Estrada. I saw Larry Wilcox there. The cast of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, like Rob Paulson, who was the voice of Yakko. I talked to him at the Comic-Con last month. And Dave Foley from Kids in the Hall, News Radio. Yeah, it was great.
Did he have anything to say? Did you say anything to him?
He was a cool guy. I mean, he's like a pretty down-to-earth guy, and how what we talked about last week, like brain candy and all those other things. The new kids on the Kids in the Hall. I mean, it still kind of holds up, but I heard that, I didn't want to say, but you were saying that new reboot was just really not that good.
It's just maybe I grew out of it. Maybe they lost it. I don't know, but I just wasn't feeling it. I was like, I tapped out at episode 3. I'm like, I get it. I don't want to hate these guys. I don't hate them. They're fine. That show, that the original Kids in the Hall was a huge influence. But yeah. So, all right. Well, that's good. That's Mondays with Mazur in the books.
Did a full hour here.
Yeah, Memorial Day special for all of you. Again, sign up to our Patreons, and I will get this over to you, Tony, and we will see you next Monday. That's a wrap. Count the votes. Bring home the